Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of High Energy Girl. And today I'm super excited to have Tracy Robert on the show. She is the owner of Mosaic Fitness and Nutrition, and she is a colorectal cancer survivor. And she has so much energy. I cannot wait for you to meet her. So let's go and say hi to Tracy. Welcome to High Energy Girl, a podcast helping women to age stronger. Because it is never too late to get fit, be strong, and feel sexy. I'm your host, Tracy Gluheich, health coach and personal trainer, and founder of highenergygirl.com. Each week, we will either have a guest interview, which will provide you an actionable tip to help you age stronger, or I will do a solo episode that we will have a fun challenge for the month. Please also join our Facebook group, High Energy Girls. Looking forward to seeing you on the inside. Hope you enjoy the show. Create Whole Body Wellness, a powerful new advancement in energy medicine. Increase your energy, empower your life. I am super excited to announce that I am now a bioenergetics practitioner. And many people are like, well, what is bioenergetics? So imagine that our body is controlled by our energy field, and these fields get distortions and blockages, which create physical and emotional symptoms. So how do we get energy blockages? From stress, toxins, EMFs, emotional traumas, physical scars, and physical traumas. All you need to do is decode the human body field to get to the root cause and restore your energy for life. For more information, head on over to the blog at highenergygirl.com/bioenergetics with an X. That's BIOENERGETIX, and heal your energy for life. Hey Tracy, thank you so much for coming on our show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Tracy, with the 2 E's. Yay.
I know. I'm sure you can imagine that has been botched my entire life.
Well, I think it's so cute because mine's just plain old Tracy with a Y. So I always thought it would be fun to have an I, or like how you have 2 E's. So I think that's really fun.
Yeah, my mom was a little wonky. My middle name's Michelle, and it's spelled with M-A-C-H instead of M-I.
Wow. What was going on there? Was it the 60s? Is that what it was?
Yeah, it was the 60s. I was born in 65, and my mom was pretty clean. Otherwise, I'd thinking she'd be doping it up or something with that.
Right?
Yeah, she was a little nerdy, but that's all good. So
Yeah, good. Awesome.
So Tracy, for the listeners that don't know you, why don't you let us know a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Well, I have been a fitness and nutrition coach since 2001. And I've always been somebody that loved working out. I was an athlete when I was young. I'm from Buffalo, New York, and moved down to Texas when I was about 26 years old. So I just was done with the cold weather and wanted to get out. And, when you're in a place that's warm, you have a lot more opportunity to get outside and work out and, be active and stuff like that. Now, I think that Dallas is like one of the top 5 cities for obesity, unfortunately. We have a lot of restaurants here. So, so I have 2 boys, and I'm married, and my story has always been for people to, want to become their best selves, mm-hmm. and to find that through really changing their health story, instead of their history, like their health story. So, and, the ways that I have done that mainly is through personal training and nutrition coaching. So that's a little bit about me.
Oh, I love that, what you said, your health story instead of history.
Yeah.
That's cute.
Because I really think that people, sometimes it's really overwhelming. There's a lot of nutritional information out there, as you know, and it really affects how people want to start. They're not sure where to go with all that information. They feel overwhelmed by it. And sometimes I think it keeps them in a place that's stuck. And so then they continue with maybe unhealthy habits, instead of, saying, all right, I'm going to try something. So I felt my background is education. I was a teacher before I got into fitness. And so I kind of just bring that to the table. When I decided to change into becoming a personal trainer, I just used my background with special education and education in the schools and created curriculum and programming from that perspective.
So now, do you work out of a gym or do you go to clients' houses, or what's your business model?
So my business model is I have an in-home gym. My garage is transformed into a gym, and I also work out of it's a personal training gym a couple days a week, just for some clients that are closer to Dallas. I'm up in Frisco, so a little bit more north of Dallas. And I have everything. I mean, I was certified to teach Pilates, so I have a reformer. I have a full service gym. I have a squat rack and cable machines and all the bells and whistles of the fun, stability stuff like balls and BOSUs and all that. So, my tagline is changing the mirror from the inside out. And really what that is about is that no matter if you are doing fitness or nutrition, life coaching, whatever it is, you have to start with the inside.
Mm-hmm.
You have to start with having that mindset reset, because when the mind is broken, the body is going to follow. So I'm sure you've heard this, like your thoughts become feelings and then your feelings become the actions. And, I really want to help people to be able to select the thoughts like they select their clothes every day, really being able to look deeper inside of themselves, because no matter what I was doing, you're not just talking fitness and you're not just talking food. You're always talking about the emotions that are connected to those things.
Absolutely. That's why I got certified recently as a full, as a life coach.
Yeah.
Because I realized that just doing health and fitness wasn't tapping into the root cause of what caused the issue to begin with.
Correct. Definitely. And, I think, when somebody believes that they do not have the ability to change their thinking, they just, well, this is how I am, or this is how I've grown up, or this is the culture around me, that's when we stay the same. And it's really challenging then for us to move forward. And I just really think mastering your thoughts is something I really want to empower, people to believe that they can cultivate. And that, and I think the painful part of that process is it's a sacrifice to let go of that negative thinking. It really, truly, like, we hold on to that. Like it's our blankie, like our security blankie sometimes. Like, no, don't take my bad thoughts away. Even if we want to change, we hold on to them. And I think that's the part of the process of surrendering and letting go, and then needing the support of a coach that's able to meet you where you're at, and be able to provide you with action steps, that you are able to do, that are just bite size, not overwhelming information. Because, then a lot of times people just go, oh, this is too hard. This is too much. I can't do it.
Yeah. So pretend I'm your client and I come to you. What are some steps that you would tell me that I should do to change that stinking thinking?
Change that stinking thinking. I love that. Well, I think one of the first things that I do as a nutrition coach is to help people to learn that I have a model. It's called PRISM. And so in that, what I noticed, and here's the thing, whether it was I was teaching people in the school system or I was teaching a client, goal setting, even though we talk about it all the time, was still something that was really overwhelming. And I think it's because we look at the long term. So a client comes to me, if you're my client, you say, Tracy, I want to lose, 50 pounds. That's your long-term goal. That is something that's going to take some time. It's not going to happen in a week. And so to be able to help people to recognize that we have to look at that goal, but then pull it back to what's our short-term goal. And then what is our, macro goal and our micro goal and our mini goal. So I kind of help them think backwards. So what are the habits that you need to change to hit that goal in, say, a 6-month time period? So your mini goal is, what is something you're going to change about your day? I'm going to leave my clothes out at night, so that I make sure that I take them in my gym bag in the morning because I'm going to work out or whatever it is. I'm going to meal prep. That might be something that's more of your macro goal. That's something you're going to do on Sundays to prepare for your week. And being able to teach people the steps that they need to take, because then it takes it from this idealistic thinking to very accurate, realistic thinking. So now they really understand that true change comes from our daily habits, our weekly habits, and that's what's going to help them get to that 6-month goal. So I think it's being able to teach them that. The second thing is, like I said, I have a acronym I use. It's called PRISM. So just I call it 3D training. So really being able to train the body in 3D, looking at all the different angles of our body. But then also I use it to help them work through all the different goals of their life. So when people come and they say, okay, well, I want to physically lose 50 pounds. We look at that and I will take a journal and I'll have them write down at the top. They'll put a P, the first acronym, physical, and they write down all the physical goals they can think of. And then the next one is R. So that's going to be their relational goals. Because what I found over time is the support system they have is really going to determine how successful they're going to be, especially at the beginning of the process. Because, until they, I think, have some confidence, the support system around them can really make or break the situation. Yeah. So being able to look at, I usually give them a social support questionnaire, help them understand, like, okay, here's some of the relationship things that I may have, maybe with my husband, or maybe it's even not even somebody they live with anymore. Maybe it's how they grew up. I have to finish everything on my plate, and that comes from my father, and I don't know how to break that or whatever. And then the next part of the acronym is I, and that's going to be their intrapersonal, or it even can be emotional stuff. Sometimes that helps people understand. But what are the things inside of you that you want to change? So maybe you're somebody that has no boundaries. And so you go out with your girlfriends for lunch and you're starting to make some changes, but they can easily influence you out of that commitment of yours. And so really starting to look at your own self and what commitments you don't keep to yourself. And are you somebody that's a people pleaser? And so what are those things that you want to change in yourself? And then looking at your spiritual side, that's the S in PRISM. What are the spiritual things? Who is your higher power? What does that look like for you? So that you're able to connect to something higher, because that just gives you more purpose. And for some people, that's the start of a journey. I stopped going to church, or I stopped connecting, at a spiritual level. And I think I need to get back to that. And I think that helps them to support them in their, journey towards creating their own health story. And then finally, the M, that stands for their, just mental goals. And sometimes money we talk about too. So financially, what are the things that maybe they believe about, their thinking, they believe about money, because that's going to determine too, like how much of an investment they're willing to put into their own health. And I think when we're willing to spend our money, our resources, how we think about those things really determines how much we're willing to commit to ourselves. And I think as women, especially, we will pay for all kinds of things for our children and for our families, but we're always last. And being able to transition that and help them to see that. So those are some of the things that I usually teach people off the bat.
I love it. And that's where everything starts, just like the mindset thing and valuing yourself and the financial thing. Like you're either going to pay now for good health or you're going to pay later for bad health.
Exactly. And, even if so, in 2015, part of my story is I had found out, I just turned 40 and found out I had colorectal cancer. Of all the cancers. Yeah. And I was healthy. I mean, I was a person, like I said, I had worked out my whole life and I also ate well. So it wasn't just like I was the person in the gym, doing weights and doing cardio and then going out and eating, whatever I wanted. So I had been a really clean eater for, probably 10 to 12 years before I even found out. But I always had inflammation. I always had, I had IBS. That's what they coined it at the time. I don't think anybody really understood what IBS was. I think it was just, we don't know what's wrong with you. You have IBS. So that has been, that journey was really challenging, of course. I mean, it really shook my identity and who I was. And I think that coming out of that, it made me want to dig even deeper into, gut health. And I found out a few months ago I have SIBO. So that really was probably what I had all along, why I was always inflamed, even though I was eating good. So it just makes you a better health coach, when you're able to, I think because you have your own problems.
Well, we all have our own problems.
Yes.
So you were 40 and you had colorectal cancer.
Yes.
Did you have symptoms? I mean, how did you discover that? Because at 40, it's not like you're getting your colonoscopies.
Exactly. And, that is such a disservice in our country. I mean, I know Katie Couric was all about, when her husband died of colon cancer, to get it at 50. But Tracy, I really think we should have access to that kind of thing, even when we're in our 30s or even before that, because that's, I think, the second highest cancer that we are losing people now to, to death and stuff like that. And I think a lot of it, especially when we, those of us that have grown up in the 70s, our parents, it was the first time we had access to more fast food. We had, there was the Roundup and the things we were spraying on our crops. And so now you have, I really see this in people in their 40s and 50s, more autoimmune conditions, more inflammatory bowel disease, more problems with gut health. And so for me, like I said, I really didn't understand, and neither did the GIs. Like I went to the ER several times in my 20s, and they would just, eat more fiber. It's just IBS. And, I'm thinking, what in the world is this? So I had a history of, here's kind of what I think when I peeled back. When I was 17, I had mono. Now, I was healthy as a kid most of my life. I had mono at 17, and that set me on about a 7 to 10 year journey of chronic fatigue, not ever really feeling good. I would eat something and my gut would blow up like I was, 5 months pregnant. And I started having, I guess, the IBS symptoms got real bad about 3 years later. So you figure at 17, you're probably not the healthiest. You go to college, you're eating bad food, you're drinking, whatever you're doing. But I really stopped that when I was 20. I had gone over to Europe. I studied overseas and lived with a woman that she was a Christian, completely changed the trajectory of my life. And when I was 25, I started to study more about organic food. And I had a friend of mine that just started to share with me how to eat a whole food lifestyle. What does that look like? And, but I did have my appendix out when I was 29. And then probably when I was 40, I had the cancer. So I was told after my first son that I had an internal hemorrhoid, but it was real tiny. And, like having children, there's a lot that goes on down there, afterwards. Yeah. So at my 6-week checkup, when she said, "Oh, there looks like there's a little hemorrhoid," I was like, all right, whatever. With my second child, I didn't have any of those symptoms. I didn't have a hemorrhoid or anything like that. So I didn't do much thinking about it then. But looking back, what it was it was a polyp that turned cancerous, and it was over a 10-year period. So I had my son in 2004, found out I had cancer then right at the beginning of 2015. And I think it was so I said my son was born in 2004. That's when she tells me I have this little hemorrhoid. Doesn't bother me at all, the little hemorrhoid, quote unquote, until 2011. And so I started noticing that like I had changes, like I would have issues, like things would just feel kind of wonky down there. And when I told her, she's like, oh yeah, now they also think of it this way, and at least in Texas, they don't do rectal exams either, your OBGYN, until you turn 40. So when I told her about it, she just kind of was like, well, yeah, it looks like a hemorrhoid. I'll give you some suppositories. Try that. Okay. I didn't have any bleeding. It just was irritating. So it was a couple, I guess 2014 is when I started having some bleeding. And it came on fast. Like it seemed like I went from normal to all of a sudden I'm like, what is going on? And then I went to a GI, and probably about 2 months before that, I went to an allergist because I thought maybe I might have had celiac disease or Crohn's disease or something like that. And when the GI met with me, I always, the story was like, oh, and by the way, I have this hemorrhoid that's kind of bothering me. And she said, well, let's go in and we'll do a colonoscopy. And so when that's how she found it. And when I came out, she said, well, I couldn't remove it. It was too low. So it was kind of bittersweet because it was low enough that I noticed something was wrong. She said if it had been a couple inches higher, I may not have even noticed. But it was too low that they couldn't reattach me. So I ended up with a permanent colostomy. Do you know what that is?
I think so. It's like the bag.
Yes. Yeah.
My aunt has that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a lot for somebody who just turned 40 and was about to get remarried.
Wow. Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
That is. And that was how many years ago?
That was, so I just, I'm on my last year of, doing all the scans. So it's been 4 years now.
Okay. And so did you have to do chemo or anything or?
I did. Yeah. It was a really difficult journey. I had, chemo and radiation for 28 sessions, and it's one of the most painful, cancers because if you think about it, your intestinal system is still functional. So having radiation and all that in that area, there was a lot of screaming in the bathroom. Let's just put it that way towards the end.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was, and I had little kids. I mean, they were, I guess 5 and 8 or 6, I think 6 and 9. My boys were 6 and 9 at the time. So it was, I was on morphine by the end of it. And then I finished the treatments, but then was put in the hospital for over about 2.5 weeks. And they just put me on Dilaudid. I mean, I was just high as a kite.
Yeah. Bless your heart. I mean, that sounds horrible. And here you are, though, and now that gives you just so much more passion behind your message.
Yes, absolutely. It really, I mean, at that point, I had to really determine, you go through that process, and I always kind of tried to set my goal way ahead of me. Like, okay, look at the way you're going to be able to help people. You're going to have to, right here, here's the path right now. And I have to press pause on some things in my life. But then there was a time to get up and go, and I really had to really work on my mindset. I mean, more than any other time I ever had to in my life, that everything then you tell other people, you had to say, I'm on this really broken road, and now there's all these pieces around me, and I can sit and keep looking at each piece, taking the the pieces of grief and loss and sadness and, dreams unfulfilled and all of that. And I can determine to sit here in these broken pieces, or I can get up and start walking, the road of transformation. And, it's not pretty. I mean, I think the road from brokenness to masterpiece is not a pretty road always.
Mm-hmm.
It's sweat, it's sore muscles, it's frustration, it's, giving up unhealthy mindsets that could just destroy you in those moments, and deciding to really put, to death some of the old ways and deciding to get up anyway.
Yeah.
So that's what I had to do.
Yeah. And then how far after that did you get remarried?
So I got married while I was going through cancer. So, yeah, Philip and I had dated for about a year when I found out. And, I said to him, this might be a lot to handle. And he's like, I can do it. And it's amazing how God brings people in your life at a time when you may not know why, but, Philip, the day that we went on our first date was the day that he had gone to a friend's funeral who had just died of cancer. And he sat for months with this man. He had known him for about a year. And Philip would go to his bedside and read. There was a book called Streams in the Desert. And he would read excerpts for this man. And he had multiple myeloma, and just saw this man, pass away. He was young, he was in his 50s. He had a daughter in high school. And, I think when a year later, when I find out I have cancer, I think Philip was like, I can do this. Like, I've done this before. And he was a wonderful caregiver. I mean, just absolutely, he taught me, because I think I'm more like, let's go, like motivation and let's do this thing. And he was just patient and loving, and made me feel like he had it handled. Like, I remember going to my doctor's appointments, and that man was like on it, like writing everything down. And I mean, my mind is like all over the place. And he really was my peace, at that time. And so, yeah, I mean, that we got married. I had I had chemo radiation, was in the hospital. And there was a 2-month time period between that and when I had to have surgery. And I was fighting to not have that surgery. I mean, I was looking, researching, figuring out, trying to control, as women, us really powerful women like to do. How can I control this?
Yeah, totally.
And, at that time, we were like, well, I said, I don't know if I'm going to feel pretty in a wedding dress. If this is what, I don't know how I'm going to feel about myself. And he said, well, before the kids are out of school, and then we have camps set up and vacations for them that they were going with grandparents and all that. He said, we have, there's a couple weeks in May. And so we looked and we said, all right, we're going to do it on 5/15/15. My mom and my stepdad got married on that same day, which was hilarious. Now, they're still in Buffalo, so we didn't have our weddings together, but we got married on the same day. And here's the cool thing. We looked up what the number 5 means, and it means grace upon grace upon grace. Aww. And I thought, how perfect. We have 3 5s in, our wedding date, and it was grace upon grace upon grace. And that's really been the motto of our marriage.
That is so cool. And I mean, from the very get-go that you got a good one when he's, able to care for you and take care of you.
Yeah. I mean, he was really remarkable. And, the crazy thing is, like I said, he was really my example. 6 months after we got married, he ends up in the ER. Literally, this is where the story goes really nuts. So I had my last chemo treatment, and 6 hours later, he's in the ER. and then began his really crazy, painful journey with, he had blood clots throughout his leg and into his lungs, and then developed a condition that is coined the suicide disease. It's called CRPS. It's a neurological condition. So then 2016, we started that journey. So that was just nuts.
Wow. And how did you, so I've never heard of that condition.
Yeah. So it is basically when your vagus nerve, which is the central, it's like the brain of your nervous system, basically. It's up high into the cervical spine. And, you in your nervous system, right, you have your sympathetic nervous system,
Right.
which is your get up and go in your, fight or flight or freeze. And then you have your parasympathetic, which is your relaxation, your, when you think of doing yoga and breathing, right, that's that side of it. So somebody with CRPS, their sympathetic nervous system is on overdrive, never shuts off. And so their body believes that there is pain when there is no pain. And so it continues to send pain signals, down to the area that they believe is affected. Now, some people, this spreads and it will go full body CRPS, and they have all kinds of dysfunctions. And so my husband's, it started in his foot. He had an ankle sprain he hadn't taken care of. And when he did, the doctor put him in a boot. Well, the immobilization of that is what caused blood clots. And the CRPS first was affected in his foot. And then after he had a couple procedures to see if we could remove, he had some of the blood clots ended up creating scar tissue and damaged his valves. So then he never got good blood flow and still doesn't have good blood flow. And it ended up affecting then his digestive system. And he literally couldn't take a drink of water without being in excruciating pain, which is why it's called the suicide disease, because, some people just can't take it. I mean, it's really, really terrible. So we ended up finding this amazing doctor, though. She's a chiropractor in Arkansas. Her name's Dr. Katinka, and she's from the Neurological Relief Center. And her mission is to help those with CRPS in particular. So he went for 10 weeks. Out of that time period, he basically is in remission from the CRPS. And we started a foundation called the Burning Limb Foundation. And that is to help those with chronic pain and particularly CRPS get the support they need to get treatments that are alternative that health insurance doesn't cover.
That is a big problem. Health insurance and the crap it covers,
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
They spend so much money on pharmaceuticals and they don't cover lifestyle changes, which will avoid the pharmaceuticals to begin with. It is just such a bunch of crap.
It is. It's almost like it's sick care rather than health care, honestly. Yeah. Yes. So that just, that has been, in 2016, that was the journey for that. And so out of that, he went through a process called Discovery. It's a self-discovery program after he came out of that experience. And his mission then was to do this foundation. And like I said, he's still not out of the woods. I mean, the CRPS is gone, but he's got post-thrombotic syndrome. So his leg he's in pain a lot because he just doesn't get good blood flow. And he's got more initials with symptoms and stuff that I can even tell you. I mean, it's just, and it's a lot of autoimmune stuff. It's really, I would say Philip he burnt the candle at both ends. Here's a lesson for people, right? We burn the candle at both ends and it does affect our health. And he was a real ambitious person. And I think, sometimes we don't pay attention to those little things. He didn't sleep well. He was, affected by, different things like that and just health issues that sometimes we blow off. But I think, that probably if he might have looked at that in his later 30s and early 40s, perhaps some of those things, wouldn't have led to such drastic circumstances.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's my husband. He's 60 and he's a very hard worker. He doesn't ever go to the doctor. So I always worry about that. He's an athlete, he mountain bikes all the time but like I just want him to go get checked out all the way from tail to toe,
Yes.
or tip to
Yes.
toe. But he just won't. It makes me crazy.
Yes. Yes.
So
I know guys are resistant, aren't they? Us ladies are a lot more proactive sometimes about our health.
I had a colonoscopy, no big deal. I told him, you need to go. He's 7 years older than me and he's never done it. And I'm just like, man, drives me crazy. Drives me crazy. So
exactly.
Is there any other wisdom that you would like to impart on our listeners, my dear?
Yeah. Well, I think it's, I think there's always the opportunity to rewrite your story, no matter how broken it may look, no matter how long you might have been unhealthy, whether it's, mind, body, spirit. There's always the opportunity to rewrite your story, and that your pain has purpose. And I think, I think that is something that helps you to continue to grow and that we don't have to stay where we're at. So I always want to challenge people to, find their voice and create their own story and really be just vulnerable with yourself and help other people to know your story. I think that just empowers you to constantly be in a state of growth for your own health and well-being.
Yeah. Yeah. And I believe we were all born for a purpose with a voice, and that there's people out there that need to hear your message. And that's why we have to go through our trials, right? To create that experience and that story, and then also be able to, like, I feel like the more I heal myself and the more experiences I have with my own crap personally gives me the power to help others as well. Like you said earlier,
Definitely. And really you have to dig sometimes, that's why my tagline is, change the mirror from the inside out. We look in the mirror and we say, oh, I don't like this and I don't like that. And, oh, I need to lose weight. But there's so much more inside work that sometimes we have to do. And I think when you're willing to go there, then you will have the ability to transform, and you will be able to take all the brokenness of your life and you'll be able to make it into the masterpiece that you want. And that's going to leave the legacy for those around you, your children, your grandchildren, or if you don't have children, those that you have in your circle of influence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. That's really awesome. And Tracy, how can people find you online?
So they can find me at mosaicfitnut.com. That's my website. And then I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. So.
And all the same?
All the same. Mosaic Fitness and Nutrition on Facebook.
Okay, awesome. Oh, I forgot to ask you something that's really important to me.
Yeah.
What types of food do you eat? I know you're really into the whole food movement. So what types of meals do you incorporate? Do you do any fasting?
Yes, I do, actually. Thank you for asking. That's really, so one thing I didn't do before I had cancer was water fast. And I've really been fascinated with the research on doing a water fast. So I follow Dr. Daniel Pompa. He is a chiropractor from Utah, and he's got a free ebook out there called The Cellular Healing Diet. And he really encourages water fasting, and I've seen the results. So I water fasted. It's a 5-day water fast. And the cool thing is it literally will help the old cells, the debris of the old cells. You go through a process called autophagy, and it literally is those cells just kind of dying and clearing out the debris, and then you start to build new stem cells, and those stem cells are immature baby cells, and so it can literally start going to those areas in your body you need healing. And when I went through cancer, my white blood cell count had dropped, quite a bit. Well, it just never changed for a good 3 years. I mean, it just stayed the same. My oncologist would say, "Oh, that's normal." And so when my mom came down at Christmas time about a year ago, she's like, "Well, let's try this water fasting." And I thought, "Oh my gosh, water fasting." So, but I did it, and I had my appointment with my oncologist a couple of weeks later. My white blood cell count was the first time it bumped up. And I've done 3 of them now. And every time I go to the oncologist, it's getting back into that normal range. So I'm a big believer. I've seen my mother had high blood pressure. She did the water fasting. She hasn't had any high blood pressure issues since then. So I've had quite a few friends that have done that. I have a 21-day whole food cleanse. It's an all you can eat cleanse. So really, I love the quote by Hippocrates, let thy food be thy medicine. And so I really encourage a whole food diet, and that is minimally processed, going back to the basics, lots of vegetables, lots of fruits, organic as possible. In my cleanse, we take away anything that could be inflammatory for the 21 days. So no nuts and eggs and all that kind of stuff. But that's only for the time period. Really helps people who have gut issues and inflammation to be able to see when they reintroduce some of those foods, like, maybe eggs are a problem, maybe nuts are a problem, and maybe they're not a problem forever. But if you can get your gut back in check, a lot of times you can heal. So, a lot of those things, I really encourage the whole food and getting away from the process. Now, my husband with the CRPS and the nerve conditions, the keto diet has been something that really, there's a lot of evidence to suggest, especially those with nervous system disorders, it can be really beneficial. So he sticks to some of that keto diet. And I definitely do higher fat than I used to. So I do a lot of olives, a lot of nuts, ghee, butter, things like that I didn't use in the past. And so I really believe that has, helped my skin, my hair, like really making sure that I get like the better fats in my diet. So that's kind of what I eat. You brought up some questions I have really quick. Sure.
When you did your water fast, how many days did you fast, or how many hours?
I fasted for 5 days.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
My longest is 3.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Some of the stuff that Dr. Papa says is that by day, I do all the blood work stuff with it. So I always check my blood pressure. I check my ketones and my glucose. And what he talks about is you want to get to this 1-to-1 ratio. And a lot of times for people with your glucose and ketones, a lot of times that doesn't happen until day 3. Now, if you're somebody that's doing a higher fat diet or a keto diet, you'll get to that autophagy point a lot faster. So I noticed the first time I had lots of inflammation, it was really hard for my glucose to come down. But this is at a point that I had a lot of cellular inflammation. I went right into menopause because of the radiation, and I put on about 25 pounds at that point. Couldn't for 2 years. I could not heal my body. My blood work was a mess. I had 25 pounds, and I'm thinking, I'm a nutrition coach, and I cannot figure this out. And it was really, I took 90 days, and I did, it's basically like a keto diet, a cellular healing diet, and I did that for 90 days, and it really reset my blood work. So, he says day 4 or 5 is usually when the magic happens, especially for people that can't get the glucose down. So that's why he suggests 5 days.
Okay, I'll have to try that. I've been keto for about 2.5 or 3 years. I can't even really remember when I started, to be honest.
Okay.
And I love it. I mean, I absolutely love it. I'm probably 95% keto. Every once in a while, I decide we live on a orchard. We have 5 acres and we have 80 fruit trees.
Oh,
so
wonderful.
Yeah, so that's hard because now I don't hardly eat fruit at all. Like maybe once when we harvest, and that's about it.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I'm more like aligned with your husband on that one. But it's really it's crazy because I work out really hard, and like yesterday I did a really hard boot camp, and today I lifted really heavy, hit some PRs in the gym, and I haven't eaten anything all day because I'm in fat burning mode.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm not hungry.
Yeah. And, I didn't eat fruit. Well, I had berries and green apples for about 6 months. That's all the fruit I had because some of my issue was my A1C was high. And so my suggestion sometimes for my people that struggle to lose weight, particularly women after they go through menopause, and for those that are doing the 21-day cleanse of mine, if they are not budging, like they just are not losing weight, one of my recommendations is to limit their starchy vegetables like the potatoes and things like that, and to limit the fruit. So fruit has tons of great phytochemicals. The problem, though, is if your body is not able to uptake your insulin into the cells the way it needs to, then all the fruit in the world is going to mimic just like sugar, because at the chemical level, it breaks down to glucose. And if you can't clear the glucose, you're going to have high levels of it. And then that holds on to inflammation, holds on to weight. And I've seen time and time again when I tell people, okay, here's the fruit I want you to do. Let's try to see if we can heal your body for a time. And they'll do that because now I eat any fruit I want and I'm fine. Like everything is fine. My blood work is fine. My weight is fine. All of that has been totally normal. So it's been really interesting to see, how much our cells change, especially as we age. And to be able, it feels so empowering to be able to give women their health back. As you know, like I love what you say, like you work with women in the hot years, because it's true. Like when you go through menopause, and I mean, I was thrust into menopause, your body is so out of control. And you don't know what to do. I mean, it really is frustrating. And, we just, so much of who I think us as women, we battle with what we look like and how people see us, and wanting to still feel sexy and young and want to, have like wear some of the cute clothes. And all of a sudden it's like, what happened to me? I eat, I eat a piece of fruit, or I eat a piece of dessert or something, and now I feel like I've blown up. And truly, it's almost what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because everybody's body responds differently to everything. Like somebody in one of my groups was like, help, I'm like stuck, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, maybe you have food sensitivities. I find a lot of people have a dairy sensitivity, the casein. So when you said ghee is pretty good because most people can tolerate it because there's no casein in it, or minimal,
Yep, absolutely.
So anyways, well, listen, girl, you are a breath of fresh air. I loved chatting with you. I love following you on Facebook, and you're just so sweet. And I'm just happy that you're healthy.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm happy I'm healthy too. And I'll tell you what, I'll be 45 this year. And I think that I've always lived with that, make the most out of every opportunity, because you never know that maybe your last one. And I just think after you get cancer, I think it just goes into acceleration mode. And so I'm like, all fear aside, I'm just going to move into my fear places. I'm going to, find what I need to do so that I can live my best life and do the things that I want to do, because really you don't know what life's going to throw at you, and you're not guaranteed even when you're healthy. I think that's the lesson that I learned. Like, it doesn't matter. It's not a stamp of protection at all. So I'm just, I'm leaning into those places that are really scary. Like, I'm going to write a book, and I'm going to, do a podcast and make the difference that I want to make, instead of saying like, maybe that's for someday. Like, it's for today.
Oh, I love that. That's something I needed to hear, because I'm in that like crossroads of having a full-time job versus being in wellness full-time.
Yeah.
And there's, it's like I'm just in that angst, and so thank you for saying that.
You're welcome. Yeah, I know it's scary. It's scary to go, I want to live my dream. I want to do this. And I think, I've been working with a life coach, and it definitely helps too, just to have a support sister to help you put some light on that fear and say, what's my plan? Like, what's your exit plan? Where you're at right now. Here's my quote unquote real job or whatever, but here's where I want to be, and be able to identify how you can get there, in the next, couple of years or whatever that looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really a good thing to say. So awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. And I look forward to connecting with you again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to listening and sharing more about what you're doing as well with everybody.
Aw, you're so sweet. Thanks, Tracy. Take care.
You're welcome. You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, that was an awesome recording. I felt like I just got so many golden nuggets that I can use and apply to my own life. And I certainly hope you do too. So please, if you love the episode, share it with a friend. And as always, we love reviews on iTunes. So please head on over to iTunes and give us a review. And if you have any guests that you think are awesome, amazing, high energy girls, we would love to talk to them. So please email me at tracy@highenergygirl.com. That's Tracy with 2 E's at highenergygirl.com. Okay, girls, go out and make it a super day. This podcast contains the opinion and thoughts of its host and guests. It is intended to provide helpful and informative material on the subjects covered. All statements made on the podcast have not been evaluated by the FDA and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. If the listener requires professional assistance or advice, please contact your personal medical doctor. Both host and guest specifically disclaim any responsibility for any liability, loss, or risk, personal or otherwise, which is incurred as a consequence directly or indirectly of the use and application of any of the contents of these episodes. Like I said, this is my opinion and I could be wrong.